let's dive into the Q&A. So you know what? Let's do rapid fire. You get like 30 seconds to answer them, let's say. Maybe 45 if it's really.
Okay, let's go.
Let's see if that works. So I'm going to take the questions that are the most upvoted. What are metrics or indicators of finding those channels, strategies that show potential for depth?
Yes, I tend to max budgets on a very short period of time. Right? Instead of saying, hey, like I have a $3,000 I'm going to spend on a month, and that's not going to tell you. I'm going to say, cool, like let's just max out at like $1,000 for a day, and let's see how much I can drive. This for paid, right? Generally, if you just take a step back, I recommend everybody in B2B SaaS to build a good list of their total addressable market, all the companies that they have in the market that they can address, and see where can they find those. So build a list first. Always have a list first.
Does that apply for non-SaaS as well?
Non-SaaS? It applies to non-SaaS. It does not apply to B2C. B2C, the market is just too big for that.
Yeah. Best 2 books or big content that you read in 2020, 2021?
Yeah. So obviously I'm working on my investing. So here's one, Angel from Canis. That's one. And I'd say the other one that I really like is The Everything Store, learning for Amazon. Even if you don't like too much of their culture, there's a lot to learn in there.
Cool. Any idea of successful campaigns that do deliver value versus campaigns that don't?
Yes, absolutely. Try to make learn something about the future customer that is painful, is problematic, and your problem resolves. All right, that is, and make a prediction. My recommendation is that making a prediction, even if a bit wrong, will always work better than not talking about them.
Okay? Does that pain does the customer need to be aware of that pain?
They need to agree that is painful once they read it. They don't need to know beforehand. For example, the response time is not something that VPs of sales check, right? But if you tell a VP of sales that their sales responds in 3 days, if that's true, then they will agree that that's a problem.
Yeah. Makes total sense. Here's one for me, actually. CLTV. Are we talking revenue or are we talking the gross margins when calculating customer lifetime value?
So for me, it goes back to like the learning about finance that you said earlier. Short term, you're talking about revenue. Long term, you're talking about margins. So here's another way to look at it, right? Margins don't matter as long as they're above 70%.
And then we can look into your contribution, because we see this a lot, right? We talk about this ratio of 3 to 1 CAC CLTV, but that makes a lot less sense when you're looking at revenue and when you're actually not looking at gross margins.
One way to think about it, a very simple way. Your total CAC, so sales, headcount, discretionary spend, the total CAC should be about $1 for $1 of annual revenue. Okay, that's the average. Okay, it's a good average. Okay, and within that you have to pay your salespeople, your marketing people, the campaigns and whatnot. It's $1 for $1. Okay, that means a few things. It means that your retention needs to be more than 12 months, otherwise you're losing money. Okay, and it also means that I'd say within that you need to find, let's say, what is the paid CAC. All right, do not blend your CAC or I will kill you. Okay, do not blend your CAC. That is cheating. If you take your organic and SEO and blend that in the paid, that is cheating.
Yeah. If anybody wants to take this a bit further, there's pieces by David Skock that explain this really well, and look into the contribution to overheads model. Also, when looking at lifetime value, it's a financial tool. It's called the contributions to overhead model. You will become invincible if you can understand it and manage it. I actually learned it from our COO over here. It's very powerful. Can we go deeper into, you have 30 seconds and it's a 1-hour question. Growth team structure, being under marketing versus being under product versus being independent.
Yes. It's a question about where are the incentives and what is the growth team's KPI. My position is on being independent, and it's a question of culture and incentives, because product and marketing, traditional marketing, are incentivized for success at every launch. Okay. And so they upfront the cost of research and finding the most likely campaign or product to launch with a high success rate.
Yeah.
Growth is the exact opposite, all right, in a funny way, because we talked about upfronting the cost.
Right.
Growth actually ships a lot of things at a low cost and discovers what's going to learn, what's going to work by looking at the data. And so there's a high fail rate. You cannot have a team which is incentivized for high fail rate working with a team that is incentivized for high success rate in the same team. This is not possible. It's going to break.
I think this is so crucial. Can you go through this model one more time? Just break it down one more time.
Yeah, sure. So if again, you go back to like marketing teams, right? Just imagine a marketing leader that has 3 product launches and he fails at 2 of them and now is working on the 3rd. Do you have confidence on that person succeeding? No, that person's fired, right? I guarantee that person's fired, right? The thing in growth marketing is you're not here to do the obvious, okay? A lot of people say, oh, we're going to do all the obvious things. Like, cool, give that to the marketing team.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if it's obvious, if we know beforehand it's going to work, then it's an execution game. It's not an experimentation game.
No,
if it's
100%.
execution, they will be better at that. You're here as a growth person, as I said, to be like a VC. You don't know if it's going to work. It's very similar to angel investment. You have limited information, all right? And you're trying to like build something to find out, does this has any ground? Is it solid? Okay? And you don't know.
High risk,
high
reward.
high risk, high returns.
But the returns are exponential. So the returns are, well,
And they
completely
pay back,
outweigh the risks.
and they pay back all the risks.
100x,
right?
100x, 300x.
But the culture is different. It means that as the founder or as the CMO, you need to explain that this team, they're not going after the next shiny thing. They're not just jumping around, okay? They are finding out the next big levers for growth. There's one caveat that is important.
Yeah.
The growth team cannot maintain all of what they ship. Otherwise, they slow down. So there needs to be a handover at one time of the successful experiments to another team.
What do you call that? Product marketeer or?
Depends on the scope. It can be product, it can be marketing. There needs to be a handover to a team that maintains, I say, those wins.
And I think what's really important there is, like when there's a sales and marketing department, you usually don't have marketing. It's just marketing doing the work for sales and being like an agency. It's kind of same thing in marketing. When growth is under marketing, you don't typically have a growth team, actually. You just have a fancy sort of marketing team. And you need to somehow incubate them for those high risk, high reward experimentations. And it's tricky and it takes time. No, that's a good one. Other question. So if a company's scaling and needs to have these growth capabilities within their organization, can they, when we see the skills gap from a macro point of view on the market, it's hard to hire good UXers, good growth marketeers, legitimate ones, performance marketers. Should they build those capabilities or should they hire those capabilities? Can they only hire for those capabilities? I'm not talking about companies like Segment or Growth Tribe or HyperGrowth that can easily hire. I'm talking about more traditional organizations. Do you build those capabilities or do you only hire and only try to buy those capabilities?
Yeah, it depends on your culture and like what is the, and how much, I'd say, how risk-taking is the organization. If we think of more traditional organizations, the risk-taking is low. Like the more traditional the org, the less risk-taking there is. And the further away from startups, the less risk-taking there is. All right. And so that's one thing. And so the people they don't have that culture. They don't have the connections and network to learn and the mentorship and the communities to learn about what's going to work. It's very easy. People think I have a lot of ideas. No, I have a lot of friends. All right. That's the difference. I have a lot of communities where I see a lot of things and I can just I can suck up all of those good ideas and apply them to all of my businesses.
But also identify which ones are valuable.
Sure. Do you have that person in your organization? Yes or no? If you don't, you need to hire for that person. Yeah. You can't train for that. My point is that you can't train for that mindset. Yeah. Okay. That is something that people have or they don't have.
I would argue that every company has a person like this. Maybe not early stage when we're talking 10, 20, but we work with really large organizations of 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 plus. All of those companies have those people. They're just not being used correctly. I'm going to do a shameless plug. We're actually writing a book about this called Upgrading Brains. And you can sign up to get the early version. It'll be out in like October. I'll share the link later on. The fact that identifying those people within the organization, nurturing them, and helping them be the teachers for others, and how to upskill everybody else within the org, because hiring is freaking expensive, and we see so many of our portfolio companies they're not able to hire the right talent. They're just not. So we start building those capabilities.
Use mentors. Just pay mentors. There's a ton of people who are happy to like be paid for a couple of calls a month to like up level your team. I am surprised that so many organizations don't use that. Like pay somebody who's a couple of years ahead in their career. All right.
It
give
works.
them just a bit of stock. All right. I've done that for years. Just take like 0 point something of a company, of a young startup, to like coach and mentor their employees.
Absolutely. I think it works really well in the startup scale up. It becomes to be difficult within more traditional orgs where still 80% of B2B marketeers work, let's say. Okay, we're running out of time. Let's do the last. I don't know. Do you have an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go over?
No. I'm blocked.
So I'll ask you one last question.
Okay.
Yeah, just can you talk about the concept of a rockstar generalist versus T-shaped?
Yes.
Seems to be that if you had generalist experience and the product succeeds, you'd be in a position to go deep on one area.
Let's put it the other way. I think that being a rockstar generalist is one of the hardest but most valuable things for your organizations. I'm not saying that you are the best at every vertical. I'm not best than Maxime, who was, paid at Gorgias. But I'm good enough to understand a lot of things about paid, how it works, and to be able to call bullshit when I see it, right? But more importantly, I have good enough knowledge on all the verticals so that I can know how to stack the things together. I know how to connect paid to emails, to the websites, to the user onboarding. Very few people know how to do that. And this is important. It's important because if you can do that, you can then understand the experience of the life cycle of a given user throughout all the stages. Few organizations do that, and there's a breakdown in experience at every step. You have a very good personalized onboarding campaign, or say paid campaign, and then the nurturing is a completely different topic, and the onboarding is completely different, and the user is lost. Okay, you got to be able to think through how can I have a very horizontal experience for each audience that makes sense, that is relevant. You can only do that if you're good journalists, and that is where you find the best experiments.
So be curious, expand your cognitive bandwidth. You will have more growth options in your brain, and do that by watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, running.
One last recommendation.
Yeah.
Side projects. I most often, when I hire and I recruit people, I look for side projects. The side projects are a good sign of people who are trying to expand their cognitive access to things that they have not been able to do in their own organization. Okay, somebody who does paid, but is trying SEO on the side project. Somebody who's on email, but is building other kind of products. Like side projects for marketers are a fantastic sign that that person is really curious and has strong appetite for learning.